105.5 Hits FM. It's Taylor B along with you. And this edition of Tractor Talk is brought to you by Durham Kubota. You can visit them at durhamkubota.ca. Joining me today is Garrett Harima from Haralima Farms. Welcome to the show, Garrett.
Hey, Taylor, how's it going?
It is going. I mean, it's nice outside. It's been nice for the last couple of days, but it doesn't really feel like fall.
No, and it's a good thing for us. We're needing this heat in order to get the corn and the soybeans to finish. When I talk about finish, I'm meaning we're wanting the crop to get to a maturity, which means that we're wanting the kernels to fill, and we want those kernels to dry down without any interference. Our biggest issue right now is frost, and if we get a hard frost, what'll happen is that plant will shut down, and essentially that crop is done for the year. What that'll do is that'll lighten up our bushel weight for corn and soybeans, and that affects us on the price and the grade of the crop as well.
Oh, okay. So have you done most of your crops? Like you've harvested most of them already for the season?
Yeah, we've done our soybean harvest. We finished up on Tuesday. And our corn silage, we finished, I guess it's almost 3 weeks now since we did that. With how spread out the planting was this year and the lack of heat we had at the beginning of the season, it's going to be a long, drawn-out harvest this year. There's been other years we've done our corn silage Uxbridge Fair weekend, where this year we were almost a month later.
Wow.
And some of it depends on what corn we're growing, but we are later than usual, and there hasn't been this hurry up, let's get harvest done moment, because the crops are still
Thriving?
far enough. Yeah, they're still drying down and they're maturing. So it's going to be, our soybean harvest could get into November, if not later. And corn, there's going to be some acres that are going to sit out for some guys over the winter.
Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
With corn, it's not as big of an issue. Soybeans, you want to get it before the snow is on the ground, because soybean stalks, the plant is full of pods right from the top down to the bottom. You don't want to get snow onto the plants. Where with corn, because the cobs are 3 to 4 feet above the ground, you can go in when there's snow on the ground, as long as there isn't snow on the cobs, and you can harvest that crop. It's no problem. Some guys will leave it out because they don't want to pay the drying cost of having to dry the corn kernels down. For most guys in the area, it's a lot more economical to take that crop and put it through a grain dryer and dry it down versus leaving it in the field.
So when you say a grain dryer, I'm picturing a dryer that you would put clothes into. Is it similar to that?
Yeah, that's similar. It's run off of propane or natural gas in most cases. And what happens is you put wet corn in one end, and then it travels through, and then it comes out at 15.5% on corn for what moisture is needed to keep that crop from spoiling in the bin. Soybeans are 13%. So it depends on what crop it is for what percent moisture you're wanting to keep it at. But for most cases throughout the year, corn is the crop that we're having to dry down.
So you're literally putting it in a dryer so that you can sell it or feed it to the cattle, or what do you do with the dried corn?
Yeah, exactly. We also store high moisture corn, so we'll leave it at 27% and put it up our sealed silo. Essentially, it's like canning almost, and then the corn will ferment in the silo, and it's really good digestible starch for the cattle. For us, we've seen great success with it the past 2 years we've done it. We also feed a little bit of dry corn to our younger animals as well, and you can't feed dry corn to cows. That's what a lot of guys do. But yeah, that's the way it goes for us anyways.
How do you get corn into and out of a silo?
The silo, we use a blower, so it'll discharge into the bottom of the blower, and there's a big fan that propels it up the side of the silo and then in. There's also a grain auger, we call it. So it's a screw, and it turns and it pulls all the grain up to the top, and then it drops down into the bin. And there's also what we call a leg. A leg has a whole bunch of small buckets that pull the grain up to the top vertically and then dump it into a spout, and it'll divide it into the bin or the dryer or wherever it needs to go as well.
Interesting, because I always imagine a wood chipper kind of contraption spitting out corn or any grain or anything into the top of a silo and it going to the bottom and filling it from the top down and not necessarily filling it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Essentially a wood chipper is what our forage harvester is for chopping the silage for the cows, really. It's the same concept. You chop that plant into bits, and that's the way it works. It has a blower on it as well that puts it into a wagon or a truck or whatever.
So if I'm walking around the bottom of a silo, am I able to open a little window and grab some dried corn, or how do you get the corn out of the silo without it all spilling out?
There's a door that you can open or close it, as well as there's an auger in the bottom of most grain bins that brings it out through the center and then draws it into another auger or conveyor or whatever that brings it to wherever it's needed. And then some guys will have what's called a sweep auger, so they have another auger that brings the grain in from the sides and then into the middle. And that way there's minimal shoveling or sweeping that's involved with that.
Okay, I'm getting it now. I'm got a clear picture in my head. But I can honestly say I've never been in a silo in my entire life. But I drive by them all the time. They're everywhere.
Yep. This area is full of them for sure.
So let's shift gears a little. I want to talk about the Canadian Plowing Championships that happened, was it last week?
Yep, last Wednesday through Friday up in Sunderland.
So you were there. Tell us about it. What happened?
Well, it's basically the provincial championships from the various plowmen's associations around the country. We had 3 provinces represented. There was Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. We are very fortunate in Ontario to have a great group of plowmen that are as skilled and as knowledgeable as what they are. And the 3 classes that are represented are the junior class, which is ages 16 to 20, the senior class, which is anyone that's 21 and up, and the rollover class, which basically is a plow that instead of having the furrows turn one way, you can turn the plow over and it'll send the furrows the opposite way. So it's a different type of plowing, and it's a lot more intense to work, and it's for a plowman and someone that is knowledgeable with the art. It's pretty interesting to watch.
So for someone who isn't knowledgeable in the art, are the furrows those divots that you're making when you're plowing?
Yep.
Okay. So basically this competition is who can make the nicest divot?
Yeah, the nicest furrows or the nicest land. It's judged based off of how straight the furrows are, how even the furrows are. You want them to basically look all the same throughout the land. You want to make sure that stubble's all buried. You want to make sure there's lots of soil available and there isn't holes for bugs and et cetera to get into. Essentially, you want that land, so all you have to do is put seed in between each furrow, and then you take a set of harrows, you draw it across, and then you have your seed bed, right? So that's essentially what the art's for. Of course, farming's changed so much now that plowing isn't used near as much as what it used to, but there still is a place for it, and it is an art that is really interesting to watch.
So when you make the furrows, and you said that word really quickly, but after you put the seeds in, what do you do to kind of close the soil over top of the seed?
You use a harrow. This is the way. Yeah, a harrow. It's just a bunch of spikes or chains that you draw it across the land and it'll level it out. Do
you draw it across the opposite way you plowed?
Or with it. It depends on what your field's like. It's a way that they used to seed 100, if not more, years ago. And with modern equipment, we don't need to use that practice.
So when you have these plowing competitions, how much of the land are you plowing? Are you plowing an entire field and then they're testing it out, or is it one really long strip? How does it work?
For the competition that was in Sunderland, it's a plot that's 66 feet wide by 300 feet long is the size of the land, and they all intertwine, so there isn't very much space that's not used in the sections that are plowed for competition.
So are they all using their own strips, or does every competitor use the same plot of land and they just fix it up in between everyone?
They just connect, all the lands connect together. So you'll do a section, what you call your crown, which is basically 4 rounds, and then from there you connect your land onto the guy that's next to you from there.
Okay, so I see. It's basically you're working in turns on the same plot, but each of the people have their own sections.
Yes, exactly.
So they determine the winner by how straight it is, how pretty it is, etc. But are they going out there with rulers and figuring that out, or are they eyeballing it? How do you officially judge?
Yeah, they're eyeballing it. There will be someone out there just making sure that the plowmen are turning over more than 6 inches deep of their furrows. But generally, they're doing it off of eye, and they're walking on the land to make sure that it's firm. And you can see a lot more judging from inside the land than sometimes you can when you're standing outside.
I wish I could relate to that, but I'm having a difficult time. It sounds exhilarating for people who love to plow, though. You know what I mean? But eyeballing it, my head, I go, there's a lot of opportunity for bias here. But how do you be biased about a furrow,
Yeah, it's just like any sport. You got to know what you're looking for, and it is for those that do it, they can understand it, and I can explain it a lot better because I've been around it. Where for those that don't understand it, you have to be beside the land in order to truly understand what I am describing here.
So next time somebody sees a farmer plowing a field, just pull over, examine those furrows. Are they straight? Do they look pretty? If they do, they might have won. But Garrett, I think that's it for this edition of Tractor Talk. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good, Taylor. Thanks again.
No problem. Bye-bye.